where he's like goals saved above expected right now is negative 0.3. Like, you're talking about a guy that's got an 8-year contract that's about to kick in, and the numbers at the moment, we'll see if he can turn around, but the numbers at the moment would tell you that he is pretty clearly trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit alarming. I saw Nick Keyser put on the internet something about a goalie controversy yesterday. So, which I think, I mean, I don't think we're there right now, but it's interesting that the not starting it last night is interesting too. Is that like not wanting the comparison to be made with a Skarov in the other net or something like that? I mean, or just like he just needs to reset and take a little extended break here. I don't know. But it's alarming, man. I mean, in last year when we were going through the whole thing with Saros and Askarov and all that, and again, I mean, it's not like right now Askarov is setting the world on fire by any means, okay? But he's very young too. But talking about Saros's game, the need for someone with his game, with his size, to be super explosive. Maybe you tail off a little earlier if that style of goalie, than others. I don't know if that's what's happening or not, but I think that they really need him to go on a heater and kind of calm those fears a little bit. And again, they're not gonna sniff anything if he doesn't.
Right. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Cam to the program. Cam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
No, good morning, folks. So, number one, super proud of the Preds and the way that they've kind of brought themselves back in the last couple of games. It's never going to hear me knock that. And the third goal with Forsberg last night, where he literally deflected it backwards. I don't know if anybody saw that, but he deflected it up underneath his legs. and one question that I have is, does that goal go to him because he deflected it, or does that go? Yes. You know what I'm saying?
No, it goes to him. Then, it's the last offensive player to touch the puck.
Okay, that's what I thought. And literally, if you watch it, he was skating the opposite way and deflected it up underneath his legs, and that's insane. But it's Forsberg. The biggest question I have is, does it not seem like a contract season, like the same thing that we did last year, like NFL players, Chris Johnson, it's contract season, we run for 2,000 yards, and then they get the big contract, and it's okay. Now we're at the end of the season, or we're getting towards the end of the season, and now everybody's playing at a high level. Nobody wants to get cut. Nobody wants to get tossed. But we did the same thing last year, did we not?
Yep, absolutely. It's a good point. Thanks for the call, Cam. We talked about this earlier this week, Joe. Let's see how this finishes here. Let's see if they can legitimately get themselves back into contention. Regardless, next season, they got to find a way to get off to a better start. I mean, they were, awful to start the season last year in terms of the results. I actually thought they played okay, but they just weren't getting any goaltending to begin the season last year, and they eventually got goaltending and figured it out. This year it was a whole myriad of things, but they dug themselves in a massive hole that I still think is going to be really hard to dig themselves out of. They got to figure out the starts to the year moving forward if it's going to be Andrew Burnett.
Without question. Now, Saros has been pretty consistent, and maybe you don't figure that out, but you expect him to eventually even out. You mentioned he was goal saved above expected. You said he was like around 30 last year, right?
He was around 30 the year before. Last year he was around 5.
That's right. That makes sense because last year he was actually way on the wrong side of that for the first 2 months, if I recall correctly. And really, I mean, his numbers were tremendous during their streak. And again, it was like, okay, well, there's the real UC Saros. And that's a big part of around to not have his worst season.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025 1025. We'll get into the Titans' journey for the next quarterback coming up next. How is Mike Borgonzi going to approach this? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Driven by Wilson County Hyundai. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, a lot of discussion about Mike Borgonzi the last couple of days and what the power structure is going to look like, what the format of the Titans front office is going to look like. And now we can start to get to what I think matters moving forward here, at least in the immediate. and that is, what is the quarterback situation going to look like, and how the Titans figure out an answer at quarterback. So let's just start there. They came out with a piece on TennesseeTitans.com yesterday morning, kind of detailing Mike Borgonzi, his thoughts on quarterback and how they're going to turn over every stone to pursue quarterback. And their goal is to find the next franchise quarterback. And Will Levis is here, and he was drafted a couple years ago, and he's going to be given, every opportunity to play and compete. But finding the next quarterback is the goal and the next mandate for this franchise this offseason. It's an interesting read here on TennesseeTitans.com as it relates to Borgonzi. And obviously, the process of identifying Mahomes comes up, and Alex Smith, and kind of solidifying the quarterback position on that front. And then leading into Mahomes was how things were done in Kansas City. So as you kind of sort through all of this, and based on some of the comments that Borgonzi's had over the last couple of days here, Joe, including on DVD yesterday with D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, what do you make of kind of the task now in front of Borgonzi and Chad Brinker in this front office here to find the next quarterback, and some of the comments that have been made? He was talking yesterday about, he's talking about solidifying the quarterback position, and then made the kind of connection of the Alex Smith, Sam Darnold comparison that the Titans could pursue this offseason. What do you make of where things currently stand with Mike Borgonzi and his approach to quarterback?
Yeah, well, first of all, the existence of that article, I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, not that anyone should be surprised, but as I read through it, I saw a passing reference to Will Levis. Excuse me, and it's like, well, in case you were wondering, when the official Titans site is essentially dismissing Will Levis as quarterback, I mean, you can, of course, and of course, they said what you would think. They would say, yeah, Will Levis, he's on. I think that's how Wyatt wrote it, right? He's under contract,
right?
So there's him. He's also a person, but yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I'm 100% in belief that he absolutely won't be here. You've made the case for why he shouldn't be, and I think it's sound reasoning. And usually when stuff like this goes on with a young QB, and it's pretty clear that everybody's moving on, it seems like the team usually decides it's just better off to just go ahead and wipe the slate clean. So that's probably what's going to happen. But yeah, there's obviously, we're going to, we may have our answer obviously way before the draft. Right. And I do think that that's a real possibility, but also already where there's so much, parsing of words and trying to read into things. And I'm not sure they've said anything right now that really tells you what they're going to do. I think you could probably talk yourself into a lot of things. Like Adam Schefter pulled out a quote from the Brinker session that he wasn't even at, and turned it into an internet sensation with the generational talent quote that Brinker said, which again, I mean, you could, and then I heard him talking about it too, saying, this means that they aren't for sure taking a quarterback. But I'm like, well, I would have told you before any of this, before you co-opted a quote that you were there to get, that they aren't for sure taking a quarterback, right?
Yes.
I mean, look, is it impossible for the Titans to think that Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders or freaking Jalen Milroe or whatever is a generational talent? I mean, it's no. Why did the Broncos think Bo Nix was a first-round pick last year? We all laughed at them, right? So I'd be hesitant to read too much into any of that stuff. I also, Robbie, I would like, we have the quarterback discussion, but the big picture, we have not gotten your take. I mean, the last couple of days have been me and Kaharski going, old man yapping at each other, but I'd like to get your overall, assessment of Borgonzi, the Borgonzi scheme.
Well, I mean, look, it was a press conference, so there's only so much reaction that I've got to it. I'll just put it to you this way. I mean, there was a lot of talk about final say, as we knew there would be. And the Titans are doing their darndest to make it look like, Mike Borgonzi has free reign to make the picks and to do all these things. And he's got final say over like free agent decisions and all these things, which is great in principle. They seem to like just shake their head and be like staring into the crowd at the idea of like, All that's great. So what happens if like Chad Brinker likes somebody and you don't like somebody? Like what happens then? And I think we know what the answer to that is, but like their ability to just not really acknowledge that possibility to me was pretty funny. So again, like it, at the end of the day, how much is it really going to matter? Like how much are they going to disagree? I have no idea. But like this, the final say conversation, I don't know that there's any more clarity is probably not the right word. I just don't know that they were willing to totally address it the way that I think people thought that they should have in that press conference.
No, they didn't. But I will say that I do feel a little differently about the whole thing than I did going in. Obviously I've been calling this job the assistant to the regional manager, and basically that makes Borgonzi Dwight Schrute and Chad Brinker Michael Scott. I would say that, like, I just think whatever they do, good, bad, medium, it's both of them to me, So like, which is fine, whatever. I mean, to me, they're tied together, and that's how it should be. That's how it should be evaluated. I mean, Brinker was asked in that session about how he seems to have cocooned himself, as we've talked about. He seems to be the safest guy in the whole bunch, and he disagreed and said, "I actually think I'm the most out front." Well, we all don't know what Amy thinks, right? On that, right? Like, there's just no. But to me, they're tied together, And Brinker's been here 2 years already, but apparently, at least they're publicly calling for all this patience. And I mean, I get what they're saying. I think the final say stuff is largely a media, like we think that they're all screaming at each other on draft night, like, "It's Michael, you sit down right now," and it's obviously not like that. They have months to try to work through that and come up with a strategy that they collaborate on, right?
I think they used that word once, didn't they?
I think a couple. I think collaborative.
Yes,
was thrown in there, but hey, look, that's what it is. I mean, as much as it nauseates to hear the word again. So, to me, it's just they're I don't care. Like, was it Brinker or was it Borgonzi who decided, that they were going to wait for Carson Beck next year or whatever. I mean, like, it's them together. So we'll see if they can pick some good football players. It'd be great to have some football players to talk about.
It would be awesome to have some football players to talk about. My biggest takeaway for the entire press conference, Joe, was that who wasn't there, and that was the owner. I was like, oh, okay. Of course. Why would she be?
Did you hear Stilly carrying water for her on that?
I did not.
Oh my! Well, that's why I won Jared versus Joe, because Caroline wasn't there to give her buddy another win, but also because Vingan was like, I can't. I mean, like, Stilly's like, oh, it means nothing at all. I'm like, you can't be serious. We asked Charles Robinson yesterday. He's like, he couldn't come up with another example of an owner at a hire of a GM or a coach not even being there. Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Never heard of it before.
It's pretty wild. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. More on the quarterback discussion coming up next, including maybe a style of quarterback that Mike Borgonzi doesn't have time for. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Oh, the $99 Yearly Beehive membership with the Buzz is always about great service. We'll have Jared Stillman with us coming up at 7 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on all things Tennessee Titans as well. Right now, taking yours, 615-737-1025. Joe, going back to this piece at TennesseeTitans.com that Borgonzi kind of highlighted the journey that they're about to embark on to take on the next quarterback position. It was interesting to hear some of the descriptions that he brought up. Quote, well, you have to have the physical arm talent, obviously, to make every throw in the league. Accuracy, decision-making are big parts of it. The way you process coverages, the game's changed a little bit too. So having mobility, not just a pocket passer. And of course, the leadership part is a big part of that as well. He went on to, talk about kind of the leadership part of it in the face of the franchise and all that stuff, but did bring up, having mobility and not just being a pocket passer. Is that any sort of hint to you a way that they could be leaning at quarterback, or at least some guys that maybe they won't be considering at the quarterback position?
Well, you could look. I mean, if you want to, you could read into that and say, okay, well, Shedeur Sanders is out. If you want, I mean, he moves okay, he can move around and make throws, but he's not a runner. You could disqualify Kirk Cousins for sure if you'd like to off that comment. I mean, of all the possibilities for them, the only absolute statue. I just look. That's what the quarterback position is now, right? I mean, more and more, and there's quarterbacks who can maneuver in the pocket, but are pocket passers,
right,
which I consider Shedeur Sanders. And then there are actual quarterbacks that you can actually do something with their running ability. And there's a lot of, look, Will Levis is one of those guys. Titans didn't do a lot with it, but here and there you see, last year, a little read option, a little bit of QB power or whatever. I mean, a little bit of design stuff. He's good enough runner to do it. But even Rodgers, I think, although it's way less now. I mean, obviously, when he was in Green Bay, he was terrific at extending plays, but also he could rip off a 15-yarder for you, no problem. I mean, he's still a lot more mobile than Cousins, I would say. So if you want to read too into it, I guess you could look at that and say, well, they probably don't have interest in a guy like a Cousins, like a Goff, like those absolute, if you don't give them clean pockets, they probably aren't going to figure it out. But there aren't that many, they just aren't that many quarterbacks like that anymore.
Well, I guess what does having mobility mean to them, I guess would be my question, right? Because, look, I don't think people watch Joe Burrow play and they think of oh, he's some mad scrambler out there, because he's not. But he's got mobility, right?
Yeah.
Like Joe Burrow can get himself out of trouble. He can maneuver the pocket. Nobody's going to confuse Joe Burrow and Josh Allen in terms of their mobility, but he's got it. So I guess to what degree is the mobility important? Because I'm with you, that's becoming more and more a part of how you play quarterback in this league, right? Like the days of you just being able to sit there as a statue, unless you have incredible conditions around you on the offensive line and at skill positions. It's just harder to do that in today's NFL, and you just don't see as many quarterbacks that are completely pocket passers. So how important is the mobility to them? Do you have to have, are you wanting your quarterback to be, in the mold of Lamar Jackson, where you can build a running game around them? Or is it just simply, hey, have enough mobility to get yourself out of trouble when the situation arises? To me, those are two pretty different things.
Yeah, for sure. At least, and then there's just, again, it's just a small group where it's like you don't check any of those boxes. And Cousins is one of them, especially after the Achilles. As we've talked about with Tom Brady, who is certainly, it's one of the top 10 quarterbacks, maybe even top 5 quarterbacks of all time. He's not fast, not mobile, but great sense. I mean, I think the eyes in the back of the head thing might be as much a asset as however you move, because it helps you move to the right spot, and then you extend plays. So yeah, if we're talking about Borgonzi, well, his experience is with a guy who, because I remember how long ago was that? Well, 5 years ago, about exactly 5 years ago, watching him, make the Tennessee Titans look like the Keystone Cops on one particular play and totally change an AFC Championship game. He's not, but and he's a good runner, but he's not a build a running game around it runner. He's just an incredible. He just has an incredible knack for breaking the pocket and extending plays, extending drives, and also for slowing down on the sideline and seeing if you'll get a cheap shot on him and get 15 yards.
There's that.
But if you're Borgonzi, you come from that. That's what you want, right? You want that guy, even if he's not the great runner that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are, but like he's the complete package, which is what he talked about the other day.
Yeah, like I want
go get
the complete
him.
pack. Yeah, like go find Patrick Mahomes. How hard could that be? Like I want the complete package. Like I would love for my quarterback to be able to pull the ball down and pick up 15 yards whenever you need it. I still, though, like Joe, if I had to settle for it, I think more importantly than that is I want the quarterback that can extend plays, keep his eyes downfield, buy a little bit more time, and deliver the football. Like that to me is a big part of how you have to play the quarterback position in today's game. And yeah, like it's great. Like I love watching Lamar Jackson, who by the way does that. Like he extends plays and he doesn't just take off running. He keeps his eyes down the field and he throws the ball. Josh Allen does the same thing. So yes, I would love to have the complete package. But if you're asking me like mobility wise, what's more important, the quarterback's ability to run or their ability to get out of trouble and extend plays in the passing game, I'll take the extending plays in the passing game every time.
For sure. And then speaking of 5 years ago, a week before Patrick Mahomes did that to the Titans, Lamar Jackson's out there and he was not that at that point. He really wasn't,
Yeah.
He was a much more predictable player and they were much more dependent on him as a runner, and there was limitations of passing him that aren't there anymore. Again, go back to Josh Allen early on in his career. I thought he was going to be awful. I was like, this is a disastrous pick. So that's a different discussion on patience that doesn't really exist much today, except in your organization that you cheer for. But yeah, those guys have turned into that where it's still the first thing is still extending plays to go downfield, and then if need be, of course, you can kill people with your legs too. I mean, if the Titans can just get someone again with sense in the pocket, because I think with like Cousins and Goff, two guys I just keep picking on here. I also think that they're not great in that way. I don't think they're great. Like if you compare them, they're about as athletic and mobile as Brady. But like he was much better than those two guys are at sensing it and extending. Yep. So there's a lot. It's many shades of gray.
So I mean, look, you could, if you really wanted to, you could take this as confirmation that your boy Kirk Cousins could be out of consideration. I feel like that'd be a really sad day if we get to this point already on January 24th.
I'd love to see Captain Kirk in Nashville, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's is Darnold? I mean, is Darnold the best possibility? And is he the best option? Is it realistic? Is there any possibility of a Darnold? Because if so, I'd probably put him at the top of the list.
I probably would too. What's it going to take to get him? Because I would be stunned if Minnesota lets him get to free agency. If they don't at least
tag him and trade him. Yeah.
And then trade him. So are you going to give up what it would take in a trade to go get him at this point? Like I realize it's quarterback, so it's a different discussion than going to get even like a L'Jarius Sneed. It's different. But still, like you're not really in a spot where you need to be giving up more assets if you're the Titans.
Well, right. One of the biggest things I took away from the presser was this pretty lofty, 30 picks, 12 in the top 100 the next 3 years. You're not getting those by trading for Sam Darnold. You're probably not getting those if you don't trade away number one. Yeah,
it's going to be really hard to pull off. So the Sam Darnold path continues to be pretty unlikely to me. That's just kind of the way I view it. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Why Joe Rexrode thinks that one approach to the Titans would be a terrible idea this offseason. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. We'll have Jared Stillman with us on the program coming up at 7 o'clock. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line and welcome in Chad in Hendersonville to the program. Chad, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, y'all, I enjoy your show a little bit more than the one that happens in the afternoon with Jared, where if you disagree with him, he comes over every time I call that guy, it turns into a large argument. But anyways, moving on. You're talking about Sam Darnold. I'm curious why you think that's unlikely, because to me, I would think that would push towards potential likely because, you know, I've studied this guy's play, big Viking fan, big quarterback fan of the position I played at the college level. he just seems to have everything. I mean, the guy's 6'4". The size. He stands in there. Now, if you go back and eliminate the last two games, you're talking about a guy that's probably, I can't even put a number on his number as far as financially and what he's worth. But that last couple of games, their offensive line was depleted, and Sam, if he was guilty for anything, he was holding the ball too long. But some of that stuff I think can still be adjusted. So curious why you think that's unlikely, part A. And part B, Travis Hunter, I just don't see – I love his game. As far as his NFL game, I think that has to be the traditional cornerback that gets fed a little bit of wide receiver sprinkled in there, correct? I mean, you don't – that guy's not going to play wide receiver one with the first pick for NFL franchise. Your thoughts?
Yep. Thanks for the call, Chad. Well, I think it's unlikely because, number one, I think there's still a good chance that he starts for Minnesota next year.
Yeah. It's the Vikings keeping him makes it unlikely.
The Vikings keeping him, or at least franchise tagging him, makes it pretty unlikely to me that happens. And then if they don't, let's say he gets to free agency. Well, he's got to choose you. So there's also that as well. Like the odds would not be high that Sam Darnold is the quarterback here next year. And I'm basing that mostly on the fact that I think Minnesota is going to find a way to keep him. And even if they ended up trying to trade him, which I don't think they would, at least to start with, I think they probably like the idea of, for next year at least, having the quarterback room of Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy. And look, maybe there comes a point next year, early in the year, where they feel like they need to turn things over to McCarthy. I don't know. Like maybe you can make a decision on Darnold via trade at that point. But I understand the last two games were very bad from him. I still would be surprised if he just made it to free agency. Like I don't think that would be very smart from Minnesota.
No, it would not be. Tag him and I agree. I think keep him for another year. I mean, they went 14-3. They won a lot of close games. There's probably some aggression coming next year. But as far as you want to take the other side on Darnold, Kevin O'Connell, NFL Coach of the Year for a reason. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. I mean, he had a heck of a team around him. Yes, his offensive line got more banged up. Those last two games were pretty rough, man. They were pretty rough on the Darnold front. Not enough to me for the Vikings to be like, yeah, let's go to basically the rookie coming off an ACL. I don't think that you mess with 14-3. But I think there's still cause for, caution when it comes to Darnold being, like a top QB in the league. But he's certainly the top potential option out there at this point, I would say.
Joe, there is a potential
Travis
path.
Hunter question too we forgot to deal with, but
well,
I agree that he should be a corner. A lot of people think the other way around though, that he should be a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that I'm not at least putting him at receiver part of the time if I'm drafting him. If I'm the one in charge, he's going to play at least a little bit of receiver. Like I think you got to take advantage of that talent. And look, there's risk to that. We've talked about that, but I think you should play at least a little bit of receiver if you're going to draft him. And then if it doesn't work, like if you get, a year into it, 2 years into it, and you feel like you need to pick a position, then you pick a position at that point. But I would at least approach it with the idea of him at least sporadically playing both if I were the one making the decision on Travis Hunter. Joe, there is an approach that you would not be excited for the Titans to take this offseason as it relates to free agency. What is said approach, and why do you think it would be a terrible idea?
Well, this is going off a Glennon tweet from yesterday of a story that he wrote, and it was basically, I have to paraphrase, I should have found it, but Glennon tweets a lot, man. I mean, he's tweeting out PFF grades, and it's not even the season anymore. He's tweeting out PFF offseason grades. Borgonzi got a 73.8 for his presser the other day, which I thought was pretty good from PFF.
It's impressive.
But yeah, but basically the idea of, well, the Titans spent a lot of money in free agency last year. Don't expect that this time around. Discipline was a word they used the other day, and that's all fine. I'm certainly not suggesting that they should go on a spree, but they are not. They are not fixing it, and I understand also that they're not trying. They're not fixing everything in 1 year. That's fine too. you have no chance of being competitive if you don't get a lot of guys in free agency. And as I read this, it was kind of like, yeah, draft and develop. Well, yeah, but every team in this league, go to any team you want. Go to the top teams, the teams, that were the top in the league this year, the teams that are still playing. Free agency was a critical, key, big part of what they did. Yes, they also, for the most part, are teams that were built through the draft. And the Titans have to be great in the draft this year and next year. And they have to hope that some of the stuff we're not sure about yet of the last two drafts breaks their way. But like, they have to go out and get a bunch. They have to, you aren't fixing everything in the draft. And again, fixing to the extent of not being at the bottom of the league next year. So I just think it's a little bit of a misconception here. Discipline is fine. So discipline, not giving up a lot of. So if I would look back at last offseason, it would not be free agency. It would be the Snead trade, where I would say there was maybe where discipline could have been utilized and was not. Yeah. They have free agency is huge for this team. And it may be the quarterback, by the way. So start there. We'll see. But even if it's not, they've got to, you got to have a draft strategy. Maybe you get extra picks because you're trading out of one, but you have to do a ton in free agency. So that's where I just read that. And I'm like, is that what the narrative is going to be now? That this is going to be that screw that free agency stuff. It's draft. No, you got to do both. Every team in this league with any, I mean, look, like the Ravens, and I know they're not playing anymore, but I would say that was a pretty good free agency signing of Derrick Henry last year that made them a better team. I mean, Titans are going to have to do a lot there.
Saquon Barkley's worked out okay.
Yeah, it's decent. Kind of important.
Yeah, like
running backs, baby.
A lot of it is, well, I mean, look, even for the Titans, like Tony Pollard, pretty good free agent signing. Like I know you lost Derrick Henry, but Tony Pollard
Best one.
Tony Pollard was
Best
not
signing.
Your problem this year in terms of what happened with the Titans out there. So, like, you still have to supplement your roster. Like, look, we all would agree a lot of this roster needs to be turned over. Well, part of turning over the roster is supplementing it in free agency, right? Like, you've got to add pieces. You just got to be smarter with the pieces that you add. Like, that's part of it. You got to make better decisions in free agency. And look, I will say, like, when you're a bad team, you probably have to overpay in free agency, but that's a price that I think you have to be willing to pay if you're going to turn this thing around quickly.
Yeah. And also you need like people like DeAndre Hopkins who love country music, and you get a bump. There is a Nashville bump. I mean, Barganzi the other day is going through all this stuff, the reasons that I like this. Yeah. Well, ownership, even though they're not here, but I just fantastic ownership, even though it's stunning that they wouldn't come to my press conference. I went through all these other reasons, and it didn't take too far. He's like, Nashville. I mean, it is something that sells itself a little bit, which the Titans, being 3-14 and with a different person in charge every year, they need the Nashville bump, but they still have to overpay because of what there are in the field.
Coming up next, we'll be joined by Jared Stillman. We'll get his thoughts on all things Tennessee Titans as well. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. And we welcome into the program our good friend Jared Stillman. Stilly, good morning. How are you?
I'm super. How are you? I'm all worried about you after, you were out with the plague for the last couple of days.
It's been rough, man. Preds were making their comeback the other night. I was halfway dead on the other side of the arena. You have this to look forward to when your kids bring home all sorts of diseases one day. It'll be fun.
I actually said that yesterday in the program. Ian was out too. And I said, I think that this bug is coming from me maybe a little bit later rather than sooner, but it's coming.
Yeah, it's going to happen at some point. You might as well just embrace it. So, Jared, I heard you talking about Sam Darnold yesterday and solidifying the quarterback position and the kind of the approach that Mike Borgonzi could take here. I guess my question for you as we kind of start this conversation, how realistic do you think the pursuit of Sam Darnold would actually be for the Titans this offseason? Because I still have a tough time buying that Minnesota is going to let him go.
Okay, so I go back to that Chiefs trade with the Alex Smith trade in 2013, where Kansas City went into a draft. There were no good quarterbacks in that draft. And needing to, as Mike Borgonzi says, solidify the quarterback position, they went out and they traded for Alex Smith. Now, they traded 2 second-round picks for Alex Smith. And that's a little rich for me, but they traded 34 in that draft and then their second-rounder the next year, which ended up being in the 50s because they were good with Alex Smith. So they ended up trading 2 second-round picks for Alex Smith. So I keep throwing out the idea of trading 35 for Sam Darnold straight up. Now, Matt Caller, who covers the Vikings and has covered the Vikings for a long, long time, I asked Matt Caller, I said, would Minnesota do 35 for Darnold? He thinks they would. Again, I don't know what Alex's contract situation was in San Francisco, but Darnold does need a contract. So if Minnesota were to trade him, that wouldn't just be giving up the player and getting the pick. It would also be giving up the $40 million commitment or whatever it ends up being for 1 year of Sam Darnold. I asked, would they be interested in trading McCarthy? Because I'm thinking McCarthy, 2 knee surgeries, Darnold's become their starter. He's 28 years old. Would you trade McCarthy at 35? Because I'd rather take McCarthy at 35 than take Ward or Sanders at 1 and then be able to take a good player or trade back out of 1-1. And he told me they are under no circumstances trading J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy is their guy. So if J.J. is their guy, I think 35 and then probably a 4th next year, which I'll get in return when I trade Levis 5 minutes after this. I actually think that's kind of fair. And the reason being is Minnesota's giving up 1 year of Darnold to go to the quarterback who they used the 10th overall pick on, and they're getting 8 years of contractual control of 2 other players. With the 2nd round pick, which is a very valuable pick, and the 4th round pick next year, which is not as valuable, but again, still 4 years of another player eventually in the 4th round. If you look at Minnesota, they're gutted as far as picks are concerned. I think they have their 1st round pick and like their 7th round pick, and that's it. So I've thrown that out there. The amount of Titan fans that are, oh God, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do 35 for Darnold. And then Jason Fitz was on the show yesterday, and he was like, Minnesota's not going to do that. So everybody's told me that this trade has no shot of happening because the Titan fans think 35 is too rich for Sam Darnold. And Fitz thinks that I had 2 guests on the show yesterday, Fitz and TD. And Fitz said Minnesota's not going to do it. And TD said, hell no, as far as 35 for Darnold. Well, when both sides, have an issue with something, then it's usually a pretty fair trade. So I go back to this. The word he keeps using is solidifying. And what solidifying the quarterback position might mean to you and what it might mean to me and what it means to him might be 3 different things. But if Alex Smith is solidifying the quarterback position, which he said on DVD they did with Alex Smith, if that is solidifying the quarterback position to him, then Sam Darnold, who has almost identical stats through the first 7 years of his career to Alex Smith, that's probably solidifying the quarterback position to him. And if that's the case, I think it makes the most sense, more so than using number 1 on one of these 2 quarterbacks or, bridging your way with Justin Fields.
How many times a day do you do the, no, Jared, no, Jared. Like, how many times a day do you do that? Like, at least like 20 times a day.
What are you talking about?
Like Titans fans are like, no, Jared, no, Jared. Do they really say that? Do they really scream at you like that? Or is that
All
just
the
you
time.
screaming at yourself in their head?
The
Okay.
entire Rand Carthon administration was, no, Jared. I
There
mean,
it
you don't understand. He doesn't need to be at the Senior Bowl. The general manager doesn't need to be there. You don't understand. I
And
mean,
I gotta
that's
say,
been
I'm a big
entire-
fan of your Borgonzi impression personally.
Oh boy, it's a rough.
Vingan was
tough
like,
one.
I don't know if
like
I
it.
can do. Vingan was like, I don't know if I can do 5 more years of this. I said, I don't know if you're gonna have to worry about 5 years. The way things work around here, you might only have to worry about 2. But with Borgonzi, I keep going back to that whole solidifying the quarterback thing. And he said in the interview on DVD that the Chiefs, the first thing they did was they solidified the quarterback position with Alex Smith. If Alex Smith and Sam Darnold are basically equal through the first 7 years of their career, you may not like solidifying. How are they not equal through the first 7 years of their career?
Look, it was a disaster for Alex Smith early with the worst team. He was obviously the first overall pick.
Was it a disaster for Sam Darnold in New York?
Yes, but I would argue that Alex Smith's performance for more than 1 year by the time he got moved was definitely better than Darnold. And I'll give Darnold credit for this year. I mean, the last 2 games were brutal, but I'll give you credit. I'll give him credit. It was good. It was encouraging. I would argue that there's a decent gap between, and you can sit here and throw me the 7-year numbers if you want. I don't care. Alex Smith, for multiple years, it started to look like that guy or more like that guy for the Niners, whereas, we're talking about 1 year here with Darnold.
I think you're just making crap up. I think
Okay.
you're just saying, for starters, I mean, again, most people thought Alex Smith, and you have to remember the biggest thing about the Alex Smith knock was who he was compared to, with what he was not doing in San Francisco and what the guy who they could have drafted was doing in Green Bay. I think there was a lot of that. I mean, Alex Smith, throughout his tenure, here you go. This is Alex Smith in San Francisco. 2-5, 7-9, 2-4, 5-5, 3-7.
Yeah, give us those QB records. Give us those records. That's a QB stat. I love that you think it's a QB stat.
13-3, and then 6-2 and benched for Colin Kaepernick. So to your point, Joe, he had one good season. He had one good season before being benched for Colin Kaepernick. And he was good at not turning the ball over in San Francisco. He had one season in San Francisco with a quarterback rating above 90. I mean, again, I kept talking about Sam Darnold's 2022 season, which I know you don't respect my opinion, even though I am more right consistently
I just gave
than you.
Oh, yeah.
But
I just gave you credit,
Gentry.
but okay.
Ask Gentry,
Okay,
whose
I'll ask
opinion
Gentry.
I know you
I'll
do
ask
trust.
Gentry. Okay.
Ask Gentry about Sam Darnold's 2022 season in Carolina, where he went 4-2 as a starter and had a higher QBR that year than Aaron Rodgers and completed 8.2 yards per attempt. Sam Darnold was a changed man the second he got away from bozo Adam Gase and bozo Matt Rule. And so I think that, I mean, again, their stats are incredibly similar, including their record, their quarterback rating. The only thing that is significantly different is Darnold has thrown for a lot more touchdown passes than Alex Smith has in his career. Again, the first 7 years, basically the exact same ages. I mean, it was not viewed as the Kansas City Chiefs were acquiring Manning, Brady, or Ben when they acquired Alex Smith. And they weren't acquiring Manning, Brady, or Ben. But it would have been better than using the first pick on E.J. Manuel, who was the top quarterback in that draft. So, again, you are telling me this, my feelings tell me that Alex Smith was better 10 years ago in San Francisco. And
Jared just coming with facts over feelings. Yeah, Jared, facts over feelings.
Is that not what just happened?
I mean, sure, dude. You skew everything for whatever.
I give you stats. God bless TD, because I love TD with all my heart. But I love TD, and I brought up the fact that, again, I'm looking right in front of it at the career stats through the first 7 years between Alex Smith and Sam Darnold, and it is just convenient.
Okay.
The first 7 years for Alex Smith.
That's fine. Jared, we'll say you're Jared. That's fine. You can be right. Okay. See, this is the problem is you you suck up oxygen on some stupid little thing. The bigger point here, Jared, is if they have a priority of getting more draft capital, then how does this help this this stated goal that Brinker gave everybody the other day. You can say, fine, Alex Smith is whatever. Darnold's better. That's fine. You can have it.
I'm
Jared,
not saying
okay?
Darnold's better. I'm saying they're the same. You're saying Alex Smith is better based off your feelings. I have the stats in front of me that are almost
all right,
equal.
Robbie,
Now,
take it over,
I'm going to
Robbie.
answer your
I'm
question.
done, man. I can't.
I'm going to answer your question with what you're about to say.
Okay. Yeah. I'll
The
just sit
number
here
one
quietly.
thing
Go
Mike
ahead. Say whatever you
Borgonzi
want to
said.
say.
Really missed this.
The number one thing that Mike Borgonzi said is that they have to solidify the quarterback position. And again, reading the tea leaves, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe draft capital matters more to the Titans than solidifying the quarterback position. The Cleveland Browns in the mid-2010s with Sachi Brown and Paul DePodesta and those guys, they were more worried with Brandon Whedon and Johnny Manziel and all those bozos they had at quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser. They were more worried about collecting draft picks than they were solidifying the quarterback position. Then John Dorsey showed up and immediately took Baker Mayfield with the number 1 pick. I believe that the Titans value solidifying the quarterback position over the draft capital that Chad Brinker was talking about. I still think they want draft capital, but here's the other thing. If you were to trade 35 for Darnold, and now you have Sam Darnold and you give him a 4-year contract and you're paying him, I don't know, $40 million a year, what can you then easily do with the number 1 draft pick?
Well, you trade back.
Bingo. So now you've got more draft capital. So again, I understand the idea of trading a pick but you're not trading a pick for some crap bum. You're trading a pick for probably a between 11 and 17 quarterback in the NFL, which you desperately need.
All right, 60 seconds on this one because I'd be curious to get your take on this. I know we've got another 3 months to figure this out as well. Let's say the Titans can't trade back and they're stuck at number 1 overall. How many players in this draft do you think are worth the number 1 overall pick?
Probably 0. I mean, maybe Hunter. I don't think Carter is. I think Carter is a good pass rusher in a class. Like in a normal draft, he's probably like the 11th pick in that draft. I don't think he's what they thought Will Anderson was coming out. He's not Lawrence Taylor coming out of North Carolina. That's why the generational talent comment that Chad Brinker made, which I was in the room for, and it did not feel like a serious, statement from Brinker when he said, like, of course we're not going to pass on a generational talent.
Apparently Schefter was in there too. Got the scoop.
Adam Schefter, I mean, he ran with that. And I mean, he's on Boston radio saying that is bad news for the Patriots that Chad Brinker said that. I'm like, yeah, I don't think Abdul Carter is a generational talent. I hear Blake Bedingfield talk about him like, yeah, he's fine. And so if you're stuck at 1 and you have to pick, I mean, I guess I take Hunter. It's hard for me to say this right now when I don't know, who's on the team, but I guess I take Hunter because I think he is the best talent in this draft, and I would play him at wide receiver, Joseph. But again, this is not a good draft. But hey, if anybody's got experience with this, it's Mr. Kansas City with the Boston accent, who, again, 2013 is the hallmark for a bad draft. They had the number 1 pick in that draft, and they walked away with Eric Fisher, who was a good left tackle, which, again, I think Eric Fisher and Alex Smith was making the best of a bad situation, and that might be what the Titans have to do here.
Jared, wonderful to hear from you again. Appreciate you taking time to be with us as always, and we'll be listening at 2:00 today.
I expect listening to Joe make an analytical argument for why Alex Smith was better over the first 7 years of his career than Sam Darnold.
We'll see if we get that. We'll see if that happens on the program here today. Thank you, Jared. Jared Stillman, our guest here on the program. We'll react to what Jared had to say there. Coming up next, take your thoughts on all things Titans. We will also get into the wonderful dysfunction that is the Jacksonville Jaguars later this hour as well. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Appreciate Jared Stillman for being with us in the last segment. You know, when you're on the precipice of death, like I was the last couple of days, I think what really cures me is coming back and listening to you two talk about sports. It was beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. It's beautiful when Jared thinks that, like, Jared will come up with some concoction, some idea, and then wow, I'm sorry, Jared, I didn't compare Alex Smith and Sam Darnold's careers before we talked. Jeez, how could everyone not have done that? My God. But if you want to get in,
9-minute run.
yeah, but if you want to get into the Alex Smith Darnold thing real fast, again, it's like it just sucks up the oxygen. You know, Alex Smith, he says he was benched. As anybody would remember back then, he was concussed. They were 6-2. He was third in the league in passer rating. And Kaepernick came in and was incredible. And so when Alex Smith was ready to go, Harbaugh went with Kaepernick. And I mean, it's hard. I mean, Kaepernick was incredible all the rest of that season. Smith was 19-5-1 under Harbaugh. And the year before, if you want to compare Alex Smith and Sam Darnold, I don't think Sam Darnold went on the road in the playoffs and blew out a team with 299 yards and 3 touchdowns, nor did he play in the NFC Championship game, not turn it over, throw 2 touchdowns, and watch his team botch a couple, muff a punt and lose a game to the New York Giants they shouldn't have lost. So basically, Alex Smith played football to lead a team to the Super Bowl and watch the special team screw it up. That's nothing like anything we've seen from Sam Darnold. But again, this is like a little side argument where Jared gets into a little fantasy world, like, oh, let's do this trade, which of course will never happen, but we can spend all day arguing about it. And then it becomes like, let's dig in on this Alex Smith Darnold comparison. It's close. I absolutely think that Alex Smith was a better player at his best, but before and also as early times with Kansas City than we've seen from Sam Darnold. You tell me, Robby. Facts over feelings, Robby. Facts over feelings.
Better player. I would say the year that Darnold had this year is pretty darn close. Like it's pretty. They're pretty similar. I would.
No,
agree
he was
with
really
you
good
that,
this year. He was really good
I would agree
year.
with you that we saw it for longer with Alex Smith than we've seen it from Sam Darnold,
and we saw it in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and look, I'm sorry, man, but Darnold, the way he played in Detroit, yes, they were all over him, but man, he did not play well. He had throws. Though, despite all that pressure, there were open guys and like the best receiver in the league, and he didn't make the throws.
Yeah, he's brutal in that game.
And he was terrible against the Rams. Terrible. And that's, again, you can compile all the stats, and that's fine. I mean, I do agree with the idea that Darnold with the Jets, it's hard to judge any of that, and that you saw definite steps forward in Carolina. But I want to see someone play well in the most important games.
Would you give up 35 to go get Sam Darnold? Let's forget the fact that I still don't know that this is overly likely, because I think Minnesota's got a pretty good quarterback situation right now. Let's say they did make him available. Would you give up 35 to go get him? Do you think that's enough to land him?
Well, if it's not enough, then I'm not talking to them anymore. I'm not, like, my first instinct is no, it's just too valuable. But I agree on solidifying quarterback. I guess my question would be, he mentioned Justin Fields. If you had Derek Carr or Sam Darnold, I would take Sam Darnold last year, right, over Derek Carr. But I'm not totally convinced that there's a big difference based on everything we've seen from those two guys. Is there?
I don't know if there's a huge difference. The problem and what I would worry about from Sam Darnold last year is there's no Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, or Kevin O'Connell on this team, which could be a huge problem. Just a huge difference between here and in Minnesota.
Right. So look, I'm not like absolutely no. I don't think. I feel like the Vikings, as much as they clearly like JJ McCarthy, that you'd have to have a lot of faith to when you have a season like this, you'd have to have a lot of faith to be willing to turn that over.
I agree.
When he's coming off the ACL, man. So I have my doubts. I mean, I don't think this is going to materialize at all. but it is fun to talk about. But yeah, I'm not like 100% no way. I think Darnold for a few years could certainly be better than a lot of outcomes.
Yeah, if you told me that there was a realistic chance to go get him, then yeah, I would certainly consider it. Would I give up 35 for him? I mean, look, if I scouted him and I felt like last year was more of what he is, then yeah, I'd probably give up 35 because you're solving a problem at quarterback, which is still the most important part of this. Now, is Sam Darnold a Super Bowl winning quarterback? I don't think so. But how many of those are available this offseason? I would argue probably zero. So that's kind of in the eye of the beholder there. But if you went through your process and you felt like he was like last year is what he is, and he's not just a product of the situation that he was in Minnesota, then yeah, I'd probably do it. I still have my doubts that it ever gets to that point.
Yeah, it won't happen, but it's fun. Thanks, Jared.
615-737-1025, our phone number. How about those Jacksonville Jaguars, baby? Liam Cohen was out, and now apparently he's back in. Trent Baalke's gone. We'll get into the dysfunction that is the Jacksonville Jags coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, sponsored by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. Teron Davenport will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll continue to get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. Pigskin Pick'em coming up at 8:30 here on the program today. A couple of us had pretty good weeks. One of us did not in the competition. We'll get into that coming up at 8:30 as well. Joe, how about those Jacksonville Jaguars? So Liam Cohen apparently has been their number one target throughout this process. And he basically turned him down the other day with the intentions of going back to Tampa Bay and continuing to be their offensive coordinator. And Trent Baalke was, I think, behind the scenes, and I heard you guys talking about this with Charles Robinson yesterday too. Big reason why, and it was not exactly a secret, that coaches and prospective coaches around the league not exactly thrilled about the idea of Trent Baalke remaining there with Jacksonville, to the point where apparently Shad Khan made it clear in some of the interviews, Joe, that, hey, it's not necessarily a prerequisite that Trent Baalke has to be here moving forward, which is just a great setup to have in the interview process there. Well, the Jags move on from Trent Baalke, and Joe, now it's circled all the way back to Liam Cohen is going to be the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. This has been really weird. It's been a really strange process that's played out in Jacksonville. What do you make of how this thing is all ended up with Liam Cohen heading to the Jags?
What the Jags are going to jag, okay? Jags are going to jag. It's amazing, the whole thing, and the fact that they couldn't, contact Liam. Like, really? Like, and then he's like, apparently called Todd Bowles. Oh, hey, I didn't see you called. Oh man, I just kind of, I'm just in Jacksonville, just hanging out for the day. Like if Khan just done it like a normal owner would have done it, then it just would have been simple. The Bucs would have been, hey, congratulations, Liam. Good for you, and this is what happens. But instead, you have this complete bleep show, and the Bucs feel jilted. Here's the thing with Liam Cohen. First of all, my mind does go to Will Levis. Will Levis to the Bucs.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Will Levis to the Bucs, maybe as the Baker's backup. I think that's something to,
or the Jags,
think about. Or I'm sorry, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, what am I talking about? I'm sorry. See, I'm confused about where Liam Cohen is working next year too. Yeah, how about to the Jags as Trevor Lawrence's backup, as Mac Jones gets a starting job in Tennessee? How about that?
Yeah, how about it?
But Liam Cohen, first of all, in Kentucky, certainly huge part of Levis's success. Levis's best season was with Cohen as his OC. Let's also remember, then he went to the Rams, and it did not go well under Sean McVay. Yep. They were one of the worst offenses in the league. It was Matt Stafford's worst year. And so, look, obviously he gets a ton of credit for what happened this year. They did have, like Baker's been good. They have one of the best offensive lines in the game. And it's wild how quickly people can rise and fall in this league. So it's going to be super interesting to see how he does there. But like, it's 1 year. It's one good year in the NFL. Let me read Diana Rossini's tweet. What changed for Liam Cohen? So the Jags told him, they called him directly, said they'll let him pick the GM and would pay him, quote, Ben Johnson level money per sources. So like they just said, man, we're giving you the world, your own GM. You'll be at the top of the pay scale. Please come be our coach. Again, after one definitely good, but one really good year as an OC in the NFL, which balances out one bad year in the NFL. And this is what so I just look at the whole thing, and again, Jags are going to jag, man. That's all I got for you. Jags are going to jag.
Well, the thing is,
probably won't work out.
Well, you say that, and I think I'm with you, but I think they probably inadvertently gotten rid of their biggest problem. Well, outside of ownership, which is Trent Baalke. And like the fact that this is like it took this to get him out of there. Like we talked about at the time, like when they fired Doug Peterson, it's like, oh really? So Trent Baalke is about to make like his third coaching hire here. That's awesome. Like what in the world has he done? And I know, Shad Khan made that comment where like, this is the most talented roster we've had. It's like, well, first off, no, it's not. Go back and look at that team in '99 that Titans fans around here are very familiar with. But anyway, besides that, it's been an awful tenure from Trent Baalke. So, like, I think they've actually gotten rid of their biggest problem here, other than ownership, which you can't get rid of. I just don't know exactly what Liam Cohen is going to be. Look, I'll throw this at you. Like, this is now 2 consecutive offensive coordinators in 2 years that old the Bake Show has gotten into head coaching jobs. So apparently he's just like the next farm system for head coaches in the NFL.
Right. And I will say the last guy, it looks pretty good, man.
Did pretty good. Yeah.
Last guy looks pretty good. So I don't know what that means. Because you could look at it and say, so basically Baker Mayfield healthy now and is good again, as actually he was good in Cleveland. People just didn't notice, or I don't know, or forgot, or maybe Todd Bowles just has an incredible knack for picking OCs. But I think you're right. Inadvertently, the Jags may have actually done themselves a big solid here.
Yeah, like it's, this is what, like, if I'm a Titans fan, probably gives me a little bit of hope moving forward here is you're bad right now. You're awful. Your ownership has got as many questions around it as anybody else right now. But I mean, there are some teams in your division that can give you a run for your money, right? Like Jacksonville is just an absolute tire fire. Indianapolis with Chris Ballard apparently having like the, hidden immunity idol that you find on Survivor there. Like they can't get fired, and they never puts together a good team, but somehow can't get fired. Like, so you've got that going on. And, Houston is a good team, so you've got them to contend with. But there are a couple other teams in your division right now that are pretty wildly dysfunctional on top of it.
Well, WB and Thompson Station says, let me get this straight. A Tennessee Titan station making fun of the management of another NFL team, as in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, they are a mess, but seriously? Well, WB, first of all, we're not a, quote, Tennessee Titans station, but I think we've made maybe a crack or two at the expense of the Titans. I don't know. I can't remember.
I think we've probably done that.
Seems like, yeah. I mean, is it okay every once in a while to look around and point and laugh at other people? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I think it's healthy.
Got a texter that points this out. Orlovsky says the Titans should trade for Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we did just discuss the Sam Darnold part of it. But apparently Dan Orlovsky saying the Titans should trade for Trevor Lawrence. There you go, Joe. Solves all the problems.
Well, I need to know, like, what did Orlovsky say they should trade?
Surely to God he's not talking about the number 1 overall pick.
Or is he talking? Does he think that Liam Cohen loves Levis that much?
Well, if that's the case, then I might do that. Oh,
well,
that's a lot of money to pay Trevor Lawrence.
It is, but I mean that would solidify, right? They'd be solid, good, pretty good, decent at quarterback.
Decent, yeah,
I
think so.
Decent, yeah. You're kind
well, I always leave some room. Now, granted, I realize what I'm about to say is talking about the Tennessee Titans, so I don't know if it's the best example, but like the Sam Darnold, Geno Smith thing, like with the Jets, it's like, okay, how much of it was them being awful and how much of it was the Jets? Like, I do start to wonder about that with Trevor Lawrence too. How much of it is he's just straight trash, and how much of it is he plays for Jacksonville?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, he's had.
Look, don't get me wrong. He is nowhere close to living up to what he was supposed to be, regardless of the situation.
No, for sure. He hasn't had great teams. He's had decent. He's had decent talent around him, but it's like him. It's all been okay. So I don't know, but he is not going to be what he was supposed to be, which was like when his draft, it was like, oh, this is one of those every 10 years you get a quarterback like this at the top. And I don't care where he is. That's not happening. Those are my feelings.
Ben from Cumberland City says, Robby, you're crazy about Ballard. He signed numerous good free agents and draft picks. If we fire general managers and coaches, we'd look like the Titans. Well, I mean,
what do you look like?
Should you approach winning the division at some point if you've been there for 9 years as GM? That's just a thought. I don't know. That's just my thought on it.
I mean, obviously the Titans are as low as it gets right now. So
yeah, I get it.
If we're going to compare those two, sure, you could say, hey, we're better than them. But really the duration of he's gotten a lot of credit. He's been called the best GM in the league. He's been applauded left and right for things he's done, and he's signed some good players. But the totality of his tenure, it's incredible he still has his job.
Jake in Greenbrier says, you guys have been criticized for not criticizing the Titans enough, criticizing them too much, and now criticizing other teams. Pick a side, LOL. That's what we do here on this program. It's enough criticism to go around for everybody.
Yeah, maybe we should be more critical or maybe less critical. I don't know. I'm very confused now.
There are people saying that Orlovsky was talking about the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, it's not happening, boss. I'm not trading the number 1 overall pick for Trevor Lawrence.
No, at this point, because with the money that you're taking on for pretty good QB play, nah, I can't do it, man. Can't do it. Now, is Trevor Lawrence in his current state better than any of the QBs in this draft are ever going to be? I could buy that. That may be, but also that's why trading out of that pick and loading up is attractive.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
You could take Borgonzi and all these guys over there and say, yeah, well, they all jumped on the Patrick Mahomes gravy train and toot toot and all look like geniuses, you know? I mean, you could look at it that way too. And they started the whole yucking around with Terry Bradshaw forever ago, right? It's like it is way too many voices, and it's very stale.
You are telling me this. You know, my feelings tell me that Alex Smith was better 10 years ago in San Francisco, and
Jared just coming with facts over feelings. Yeah, Jared, facts over feelings.
Is that not what just happened?
The ever-expanding file of Nick Keyser continuing to grow. It is that time of the morning, time for the Rex Rant here on the program. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Before I get into the main topic, you know, it's also funny. I think Jared did this whole thing so he could avoid the two things he didn't want to be asked about today, which were the two things that Karski blasted him for. One of which was he saw the bro hug between Borgonzi and Callahan and was like, and looked at Jill Jelnick and was like, that must be the first time they've ever met. That was awesome.
I heard about that.
And then what was the other one? See, I've forgotten the other one, but it was also pretty funny. Oh, the whole, they're going to pick players independent of Callahan. This is Brian Callahan, you sit over there and we'll let you know who your quarterback is, buddy. And you're going to coach that quarterback up. And we'll let you know who your right tackle is. You tell your dad. Yeah, we'll tell you. We'll let you know, Bill. Okay? And then we'll all you go coach the team and we'll pick the players. Yeah, that's how it's going to go. But today, I'd like to introduce a guest to the show. Look at this sweet boy. Look at this sweet boy. Gussie, say hi. Yeah, Gus, you're on camera. Look at my sweet boy Gus, okay? I am bringing Gus into the program today because, first of all, I'd like to remind you and everybody, I did not want Gus. I did not want Quinn. But we got Gus and we got Quinn because everybody in this house overrules me. And who walks the dogs in this house? Who walks them? There's one person. There's one of five. Well, okay, four. I'll take Jack out of the mix now since he's up at Michigan State. There's one of the four here who walks these dogs, and it's me. I am the one who understands that these dogs need their exercise and they need to be outside and be free. And also, that's when they go to the bathroom and not go to the bathroom in the house. But I'm bringing Gussie on today because I found a new development in the terrible care of dogs in the Rexrode household. And you look at this sweet, but you can't blame this guy for anything. Come on.
No.
You get mad at this guy? You're not getting mad at this guy.
Big Gus.
But I saw yesterday, the first time, a pee spot in our bed. And this is a line that had not been crossed as of yet. And I don't know if it was you, Gus. Frankly, it was probably Quinn. And she does not, she's the more likely culprit here. But all I know is that's ridiculous. That's a bridge too far. Okay. Stepping in puddles, stepping in turds, these things happen. But finding it in the bed, we got a real problem now. Okay. So if it was you, Gus, I want you to apologize. Go ahead. Look in the camera. Come on. Get close right there. Was it you, Gus? Was it you? Probably not.
Looks like the face of innocence to me.
Yeah. This is terrible, terrible pet ownership. And again, I love these dogs. I would never, that's what happens, right? I don't want a dog. And some down the road, I'm going to say no again. No, no, no. First of all, you fall in love with these things, and then I don't want more grief in my life. There's already enough grief as a human being. But
I got morbid.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm sorry, I think about these things. Maybe because I think about my own mortality at this advanced age. But my God, man, let me tell you, let me just bring this to everybody. If you're going to get dogs and your kids beg you for dogs, then they better damn well walk the dogs and do all the things to make so that you don't have pee spots in your bed. Thank you.
I feel like the crossing the line into peeing in the bed from the dogs is really kind of the first sign of intentional disrespect. Like that's when they know that they own you. When you're going, I think intentionally in the bed. This is new territory for you. I'm kind of scared of what might come next.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but maybe you're right. It's just like double middle pause. Whatever, bro. I can do whatever I want.
Hey, maybe you guys can go egg houses, Joe, like you bragged about over the summertime.
Well, did I say that I was going to go with Gus to egg the houses?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't realize that. Yeah. Well, maybe I can, buy eggs for my kids and be like, hey, you have free reign to go egg houses, but the catch is you have to walk the dogs while you do it. What will they choose? I don't know.
Dennis on the text line says, poor Gus, publicly shaved live on camera. He looked innocent the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's cool. And again, I can't believe it's him. I guess next time I'll bring Quinn on here, and she is not the face of innocence, okay? Like, it's probably not this guy. Look at this guy, right? But it's probably Quinn. And honestly, there's never been any semblance of control over Quinn whatsoever. So, but like you said, yeah, maybe that is a sign of disrespect. It is new. It's new territory, and it just brings up again the whole, like we have all these friends with dogs, and they're they like ring the bell to go outside and go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, why was this so hard for us? Why could we not figure it out?
My dog like literally talks to me, just starts yapping when it's time to go outside.
I mean, it's everywhere, and yet we can't figure that out. Why? I'll tell you why. Laziness.
Get a bell, man.
C from Franklin on the text line says, Joe, I'm disappointed in your family members for leaving you to be the one to pick up dog eggs around the house. You just had a lobotomy, for Pete's sake. You need your rest. This is from C from Franklin on the text line.
Let's look at my wound.
Hey, the wound looks pretty good, only being 4 days out.
Yeah, it's getting better. It's scabbing up, which is kind of gross, but still, it's better.
Just glad you're still with us. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. Teron Davenport will be with us coming up next. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
ESPN's Turon Davenport, Talking Titans, now on Robby and Rexrode on ESPN, 102.5 The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
It is that time of the week here on the program. We head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Turon Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, host of Talking with TD. TD, good morning. Happy Friday to you. How we doing?
Hey, good morning. Happy Friday. How are you guys doing?
We're awesome, man.
Good.
Appreciate you taking time to be with us. It's been a very busy week in Titans land. So let's just kind of start there. Your impressions of what you've seen and heard from Mike Borgonzi this week as he has been introduced on the job.
Yeah, well, first things first. Every time I hear him talk, man, I can't help but think about Ted. That movie Ted with Marky Mark in there. I like the structure that seems to be. I told him that. He started cracking up, but I like the structure that seems to be in place. At least the stated structure, whereas there isn't any. Okay, well, I'm pointing at him, he's pointing at another guy, and another guy's pointing at me. It's, okay, look, this is what it is. The head coach is going to answer to the GM. The GM, in essence, is going to answer to me. We're all going to answer to Amy. I think that's good to have that in place. Obviously, pulling a guy from a winning organization should work in your favor. We'll see. So I like it. And then just the approach that he had, right, with Brett Veach, attacking the Pat Mahomes situation. I'm always that same way. Like when I'm looking at a prospect, and obviously it's at a much, much less degree, but when I'm evaluating a prospect, I'm like, okay, well, what can he do well? And let's see what that is, and then we'll look at what he has to improve upon, but focus on what he could do well. And that's what they did with Mahomes. And look.
So of all the things, I feel like a lot of the talk at the main presser was kind of typical stuff, that you'd get a presser like that. I mean, I think everybody in this league wants smart, dependable, tough players and all that stuff. I thought that the Brinker session you guys had off camera was probably some of the more interesting stuff. But of all the things said, TD, have you been able to draw conclusions? I know your guy Schefter kind of, I think, maybe over concluded something off what Brinker said in his meeting in terms of like the generational talent, but do you feel like you have any more sense for what these guys might do at the top of the draft at quarterback or anything based on what you heard this week?
I tell you what was so interesting about that. And it's funny how, quotes from a local media only meeting come out on a national perspective. It's good to know the tweets are being, and the posts on social media are being read, huh? This is the thing that statement, it wasn't even the main statement in what Chad Brinker said. And that's what's so crazy to me. And I say all that to say, I come away from it thinking like there's a pretty good chance that they move out of that number one pick if somebody wants to move up there. And you look in that statement that he made, he just said it in passing. He was like, we're going to weigh our options, but I mean, look, we're not going to pass on that generational talent. I want to make 30 draft picks over the next 3 years. I mean, if I can have it my way, I'm going to make 30 draft picks over the next 3 years, and 12 of those are going to be in the top 100. That's the statement that you got to pull out of that. And I think when you look at that, this team has 2 top 100 picks, number 1 and number 35 this year. And in order to multiply, you got to move that first pick. So to me, and then Borgonzi, on top of that, later, he said that draft picks are the highest currency. And he said if we have the opportunity to move and acquire more picks, we'll certainly do that. What's it tell you? It doesn't tell you anything about generational talent or any of that foolishness. No, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
TD, how many players in this draft do you think are worthy of the number 1 overall pick?
I'll go with 4. I think no one's really talking about it, but Abdul Carter, man, like that dude he's a menace, a certified menace, right? So you got him, and you got Travis Hunter, who, I'm not going to call it generational. Like people call him generational. I think he's generational on the college level, right, to be able to do what he does. But he's a legitimate big-time playmaker. So let's go that way. And he's a guy that can impact your team. Me personally, all on offense. But then you also obviously look at the quarterbacks. And I think both of those guys, and I will say it again, both of those guys in my opinion, are worthy of being top picks. And the more and more I watch the Cam Ward, the more I like him. But I've remained steadfast that Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback. They're working together with the same quarterback coach, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, 4.
So did you read anything into, I guess, the idea of like more separation, or I guess less voice from Brian Callahan, I guess? I mean, this is something Kaharski nailed Stille on. And I just, to me, it's kind of like, I feel like today's NFL, I know we all hate the word collaboration, but I mean, your head coach better be intimately involved in every pick you make. But I don't know, did you take anything from that in terms of like, it's more like Brian Callahan will be a little bit isolated, or no?
Yeah, no, X-Files, that's something that he may have pulled from. I didn't pull any of that. I mean, look, it's stated, right? The head coach is going to answer to the GM. Like, I don't understand any form of isolation or anything like that. In fact, I just touched here in Dallas, Callahan was guys. They're all together going to be looking at Shedeur, looking at the other prospects that are here. That's what they're going to do. They're all going to move on to the Senior Bowl. So it's not like, hey, you're not invited to the party, Brian. It's all us that's going to have the fun. No, he's a part of it.
TD, I want to double back with you on Cam Ward. You said the more that you watch him, the more you like him. What specifically is it about Ward that has really kind of caught your eye here?
It's just the playmaking ability. I love it. And, when you are able to watch the All-22 as opposed to, the TV copy, you could actually see, like, how receivers are playing off of him as far as, like, seeing him able to buy time in the pocket, extending the plays, and they uncover and then they connect. You see that. But then you could really see how he just makes defenses, his presence, attacking the line of scrimmage, right? And it moves defenders and allows guys to get open. It's just fun to watch that. And then just, some of the things that you see him doing pre-snap. Now, you could see that to an extent on TV, but, when you watch the All-22, like, you see him and you see the receivers and they're going back and forth, and you see him give them a signal, and then, it changes. Like, you look at the Virginia Tech game. Early in that game, they had a long throw along the sideline. And it was a change that he made. He checked out of a play and into another one, and it was like a 30-something yard gain. Those are all things that you like, man. It's fun to watch.
So, TD, the Titans have hired a big-time special teams coach and apparently the assistant too. Haven't heard anything definitive on Colt Anderson. A couple questions on the staff. One, is there any reason to think that Colt Anderson might still have a place on this staff? And two, if this is it, are you surprised that they're basically going with the rest of the group other than at special teams?
No, look, from what I gathered, Colt Anderson and Anthony Levine, you can't forget about him, the assistant special teams coach. Nothing has been determined on either one of them. So it's reasonable to think that there's, a chance that they remain because they haven't been fired. You know what I mean? So that's the way I look at that. Look, getting, as they call him, Bones Fassel, like getting him is a major coup. And I think you got to look at, how he's been able to identify players and bring them in and have them be impact returners. Because we know it's been since 2020 where a return has happened for a touchdown on special teams, and that was A.J. Brown on an onside kick. So make of that what you will. And the last time a punt was returned, I can't. I think 2012. So it's been a while.
Yep, no doubt about that. TD, great stuff, man. As always, appreciate you taking time to be with us today, and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks. You too. Take care.
Absolutely. Teron Davenport, our guest here on the program. We'll react to what TD had to say there on the Titans. We'll get into Pigskin Pick'em coming up later this hour as well. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Friday morning. Appreciate TD for being with us in the last segment. Joe, TD says 4 guys, in his opinion, worth the number 1 overall pick. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders, and Cam Ward. TD, I think, a little higher on these quarterbacks than a lot of people looking at the draft. Interested to see kind of how the Titans view that as well. I mean, TD, I think pretty clearly a big fan of Cam Ward and has been throughout this process here. What do you make of his take on 4 guys being worthy of the number 1 overall pick?
Well, but he's higher on Sanders, right? He said he's
yes,
coming around on Ward. Yeah, I mean, it's like that's where like the QB. I mean, I don't know what the bump is. I don't know what the math is on it, but obviously, just the top quarterback of any draft has to be considered a contender for the number 1 pick, right? And almost every year it is. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, there were mocks back in 22, weren't there, that had Pickett or Malik Willis going like at the very top? Am I wrong?
Well, I know the day of the draft, people were talking about Malik going number 2. So
number 2, yeah,
there's that.
And I mean, think about that. And when you think about it in those terms, and again, credit to Malik Willis for improving to the point where he can be a backup in the NFL. But like, you think about that, and it's just the position gives you such an acceleration of your value. So,
well, and remember that Jacksonville had the number 1 overall pick that year, and they had already taken Trevor Lawrence, so they were not taking, a quarterback at that time.
Right. So it was they took Travon Walker, right? With that pick, is that what it was?
Yes.
Or It was either going to be that, or they were going to trade out if someone really wanted to get there to get a QB, and obviously no one did.
Right.
Everybody's like, no, these guys aren't that good. I'll be very interested because right now there's a big difference of opinion on that, and these All-Star games are important for sure. And the All-Star games and the weeks of the All-Star games are very important. East-West first, and then you got the Senior Bowl week, and that's that helps form opinions for sure. I think the combine sometimes over helps with forming opinions. And it's still the game film that is what matters, and that's still the most important piece of information. And everybody's had that, and they've had that all year. They've been looking at these guys, and it feels like the majority of people who are doing this for whatever they are, whether they're personnel people in the league or they're media people, are questioning whether these guys are that good. But look, I like Shedeur Sanders. I like his accuracy. I could see him being a good QB. And I do think that like Cam Ward's ceiling is probably a little higher. Like if it all came together for him, he does some things that are like, whoa, a little different, He has some serious talent, but it's like you're just, there's no, like this year, I've heard people say, well, JJ McCarthy would clearly be the number 1 QB this year. And I can buy that, but I have questions about him too.
Yeah, for sure.
Like he's a good player, he's a great athlete.
Somehow JJ McCarthy in this conversation has turned into like this can't miss prospect who has not played a snap yet in the National Football League. And I'm not saying he's not going to be really good. And I think it's real that Minnesota obviously really likes him and thinks he's going to be really good. But like he still hasn't played yet in the NFL. I have no idea.
Right. And the unknown is so undefeated. Right. And so I don't know. I mean, yeah, with him, it's I think the best thing that I could say about him, he's good. He's good. He's a good college player, but his situation is great. I think Kevin O'Connell, if you want a young, like Kevin O'Connell, based on what we've seen with Cousins, with Darnold, and, knowing the lineage, that's a great situation for a QB. But
yes,
yeah, I don't know. And I think it's a really good point TD made on Travis Hunter. Generational as a college player, no question. Won the Heisman, played every snap. Insane in today's game that he did what he did. But does that mean he's actually NFL generational? No. And then the whole thing with him, offense or defense, is fascinating to me. And maybe I'm going to end up being proved wrong on that, that I just feel like he's incredible at corner and really good at receiver. But That's going to be a big deal. And then how much does this value, how much is he more generational just because a team does what you said, which is if you're going to take him that high, then you should explore how he can help you on both sides of the ball, even though that's not normal in the NFL.
Matt from Camden saying, if you don't take Abdul Carter with the first pick and trade back, is there any chance or way that he can drop to you? I guess that would depend on where you're trading back. Like if you're trading back to 3 or 4, then yeah, I think there's a chance. If you're trading back to 8 or 9, then you're probably not going to end up with Abdul Carter, would be my guess.
Yeah, like the perfect scenario. What is it? The Giants at 4?
I believe so, yes.
You know, they desperately want one of these guys, and you drop back to that. You pick up draft picks, picks.
New England at 4, Giants are at 3. Sorry about that.
Giants are at 3. Well,
Yep.
even better, because to me, New England, obviously they have the quarterback. So New England is probably hoping it's either Hunter or Abdul Carter is there for them, right?
Right.
If you're at 3, the quarterback down, and then you got a pretty good chance of still getting like Abdul Carter at 3, and then you've also helped yourself with the more draft capital that you have stated is very important. So that's probably best case. Yeah, I can't see Abdul Carter. I'd be shocked if he is not a top 5 pick this year.
Yeah, I would be too. You know, that's another thing taken away from the Borgonzi Brinker stuff the other day. That they talked about wanting to build up the draft capital and the 30 picks over the next 3 years and getting some top 100 picks. Well, to me, in order to like hit those milestones, like you almost have to trade back this year, right? Now, the problem is,
yes,
you need a team to basically fall in love with both of these quarterbacks. Like you need as many people as possible to be in love with these quarterbacks. And then I guess the question is, what if they don't, right? Like you brought up the 2022 draft. And again, I don't think this one is exactly the same. Like I think this is, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are both better prospects in my mind than anybody we saw in the 2022 draft. But we did see in the 2022 draft that nobody fell in love with the quarterbacks. And the first quarterback to go was Kenny Pickett at number 20 in that draft. So, like, it's one thing to want to trade back. How much are other teams going to love one of these two quarterbacks in order to execute and facilitate a trade up with you? That's the other part of this.
Love or be dumb enough to just say, dang, we need a quarterback. Let's go get the quarterback,
Right.
Which is what some, which I understand some, I would say more than some Titans fans are saying about their team. This is your chance. You're at the top of the draft. Take the quarterback. I just disagree with that, but it does work out sometimes. And I'm sure, through all the years of teams taking quarterbacks high, have some of them been just because of that mindset more than we're absolutely convinced that this guy is the guy? Probably.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't do it though.
Yeah. I mean,
I just wouldn't think of it that way.
I think it's a bad way to look at it. Now, look, it's like anything else in pro sports. Like sometimes you luck your way into stuff, right? Like you can luck your way into good hires and you can luck your way into a good, I've said this before. It's not always about how bad you are. It's about when you're bad. Like, Indianapolis Colts back in the day picked a pretty good time to be bad when Andrew Luck was coming out of the draft, right? Like that's part of it as well. So sometimes you do. I'm sure there have been teams that have made the decision and said, you know what, we need a quarterback. Let's take a chance on the quarterback. And it's worked out really well for them. I also know that there have been teams that have taken quarterbacks probably too high in the draft, and it's been an absolute disaster. And then you set your franchise back another 4 years because you're trying to find an answer at quarterback after that. Now, maybe that timeline changes now because I do think that teams are way less patient with their drafted quarterbacks now than they used to be. And teams are moving on a year, 2 years into these guys. Whereas as before, I mean, you didn't really think about that until year 3 or 4, right? Like it was very rare that teams moved on from quarterbacks that quickly. That's not the case anymore. So like, does that, I don't know, like in some ways, does that make teams more likely to take a stab at a quarterback knowing that you don't stick with them as long as you used to?
Yeah, it's amazing how much more fluid it's gotten and way more fun. It's made the offseason way more fun, and it has made it seem a little bit less, like you're absolutely just anchored to this person forever. Well, it's like earlier in this show, we're talking about UC Saros and the Preds. And someone on the text line was like, "Is there any way to still get out of that contract?" No, there's not. Like in the NHL, like you sign you got a buyout at some point down the road. With some of these guys.
No trade doesn't kick in until next year.
Well, there's that. Okay, there's that. Yes.
Good luck trading that right now. But
yeah. Good luck. Yeah, but in this league, you're right. Everything's accelerated. Everything's faster. Meanwhile, your team has benefited greatly from not buying into the early impressions of a prospect who needed some time. And I still believe it is possible that Hendon Hooker in Detroit ends up being the answer. I understand they went and got Bridgewater as QB2, but they've held on to him for a reason. And so he could be another one of those stories like that. I hope Koharski's listening.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Pigskin Pick'em's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Now, it's time for Pigskin Pick'em with Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
We're getting down to crunch time in Pigskin Pick'em. Conference Championship weekend coming up in the National Football League. And the standings are as follows. A 4-2 week for Nick Keyser with his lock. A 4-2 week with Robby Stanley with no lock. Rexrode 2-4 with his lock this past week, which brings the overall standings. Nick Keyser in first place, 69-57, 15-6 on his locks, which has been the great separator, 84 points. Joe Rexrode, 71-55 overall, better record overall, 10-11 on his locks, good for 81 points, 3 points back of Keyser. Myself, 67-59, 7-14 on my locks, just abysmal, 74 points, 10 points back of the leader in the competition, Nick Keyser. With that in mind, we begin play here today as we look ahead to Conference Championship weekend. Nick Keyser, you are in first place. We begin with the NFC title game. The Washington Commanders taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia is 6.5-point favorite in this matchup. Keyser, who do you have?
Yeah, getting down to the wire and Pigskin Pick'em. But my first pick, I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles to kick things off. I think they have the mojo to take down the rookie, fellas.
Going with Philadelphia minus the 6.5. Joe Rexrode, Washington, a 6.5-point dog in this one on the road.
So now we get into when we have two of these left. We have this one, we have the Super Bowl. I got 3 points to make up. If I do that, I'll win because I'll have a better. Well, I guess probably. So do I make picks based on picks, or do I make picks based on being different from Nick so that I can try to catch him?
I have the most important thing this week is you want to be right.
Yeah. So I'll also go with the Eagles here.
Okay, going with the Eagles. Give me the Commanders. Give me the Commanders plus the 6.5. I think the Eagles end up winning by about a field goal, but I'll take the Commanders plus the 6.5 in the competition. We stick with the same game, Joe Rexrode. The over-under between Washington and Philadelphia is 47.5. Are you going over or are you going under?
Are we allowed to talk weather, like if we all have the same information, or is that information that I should have already gathered on my own? I'll
just be totally frank with you. I have not looked at the weather. I assume it's going to be cold.
Yeah, but cold, the other day, obviously, it was freaking, a snowstorm there. Obviously these over-unders, it's like, wow, that's a tough one. Well, that's what the point is, right? That's why Vegas sets them to where they'd be betting on both sides.
By the way, it's going to be a high of 43 degrees and sunny on Sunday. So there you go.
Yeah, I will go with the over. I think it's going to end up being a little bit of a shoot, a little bit of Barkley going wild, but a little bit of Commanders throwing it around the yard. So give me the over.
I will take the under in the competition. A defensive struggle in the NFC title game. Nick Keyser, over under 47.5.
Yeah, I'm going under here as well.
Well said. The Bills and the Chiefs coming up in the AFC title game. Kansas City, a 1.5-point favorite at home. I will start on this one. Joe, I'm probably insane because why would I do this? Because all they do is win. But give me the Buffalo Bills plus the 1.5 and to win the game outright and make it my lock. I'm locking down on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I can feel it. This is their year. The Kansas City run comes to an end. Buffalo's winning this game and advancing to the Super Bowl. Nick Keyser, Kansas City favored by 1.5.
All right, my animosity is building up. I'm going with the Chiefs, making my lock. I want to see the three-peat. I'm not kidding. So let's see Patrick Mahomes ball out. Travis Kelce had a great week as well. So looking to see him pop off as well.
Joe Rexrode, Kansas City by 1.5.
Well, there's no question now where my rooting interest is, and I'm with Robby. I think that they're going to win. I think they're going to break this streak, and I think most of the football watching public will be happy about it. Give me the Bills.
Going with Buffalo plus the 1.5 on Sunday's AFC title matchup. Over under in that one, 48.5. Nick Keyser, are you going over or are you going under?
I'll be going over in this game, fellas.
Joe Rexrode, over under 48.5.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go over as well.
Give me under. a defensive struggle in the AFC title game. Kansas City's defense holds Buffalo down, but so does Buffalo's defense against that Kansas City offense. All right, back to the NFC title game. The over-under passing yards for Jaden Daniels in this game is 223 and a half. 223 and a half. Are you going over or under, Joe Rexrode?
Over and make that my lock.
Wow.
I think that I think they're probably gonna be playing a little bit catch up here. So I think there's gonna be some empty calories in the fourth quarter. But I think he'll definitely pass that.
I will go over as well. And look, I think he's going to go over while the game remains close. Like, I think Jay Daniels is an absolute stud. I think he's going to show it again on Sunday. So I'll take the over. Nick Keyser, over or under 223 and a half.
I'm going to go under here. I just got some weird feeling about that game. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, obviously picking the under. That's just my feeling. And then, I don't know, the rookie, I feel like it's going to get to him just a little bit on Sunday.
We got a chance for some major movement in the competition this weekend.
We do.
All right, Patrick Mahomes over under against Buffalo is 249 and a half. I will go under on that one. I do not think he makes it to 249 and a half. Nick Keyser, over or under 249 and a half for Mahomes.
Yeah, they did have a good week, not that long, but I'm going to go under with Patty Mahomes here.
Joe Rexrode, both Keyser and I disrespecting Patrick Mahomes greatly heading into this matchup. Your thoughts on the 249 and a half over under?
Give me the over. I think that the Bills are going to press the issue and score a lot of points in this game, more than a lot for the Chiefs at least. And I think he's going to have to be over. Woo,
So
we got a chance for some real movement this week.
You and Keyser are different on, I believe, 5 of the 6. Is that correct?
We both have Eagles and we both have Bills Chiefs over. So 4 of the 6.
Okay, there you go. 4 of the 6 you're different on. So some chance for some big time movement in the competition.
Yes.
Nick Keyser could be sitting comfortably ahead this time when the Super Bowl comes around, or Rexrode could be in the lead. There's a myriad of possibilities here in the competition.
I'm ready for it.
Or, I could make this a game again heading into Super Bowl week. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah, you're actually different from us, from him a lot too, right?
I believe so.
Yes. Okay.
Hey, I think we're all winners in this, though. I think we're all winners in this because if you've been listening to us, we have picked some really good games.
That ain't how the competition works. We're not all winners. One of us is going to lose, and right now it looks like it's going to be me.
You know what? I'll do what D-May says. I wish nothing but bad luck on all of y'all. I don't care.
That's fair. I'm just blown away that Keyser's 15-6 on his locks.
I know.
That's pretty unbelievable.
That's pretty awesome. I think that's a pretty good brag.
That's pretty good. I think the listeners should make 3 trophies, and then we all get trophies.
Stop being soft, Joe.
3 trophies, and then we all get trophies, and we all get pizza, and maybe even ice cream.
Wow. Hey, what a time that would be. 615-737-1025. Our phone number is 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll have our final thoughts on the Titans' final thoughts on Conference Championship weekend coming up in the National Football League. And the Predators have won 5 consecutive games. Can they get back into the thick of things in the Western Conference? We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 Yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. A lot of your thoughts to get to on our text line to close things out here. By the way, we got people asking, they're calling Joe Rexrode a Vols homer because the Lions are going to release Hendon Hooker later this season because they don't trust him. I am interested to get Joe's thoughts on the Hendon Hooker part of this here in just a second. Got a couple things to get to here in this last segment. The Predators have won 5 games in a row. They get a 6-5 win last night against San Jose. Philip Forsberg extending his goal streak to 7 games. We're going to get into them here momentarily. We will take more of your thoughts on Conference Championship weekend, as well as the Commanders take on the Eagles and the Chiefs hosting the Bills in the AFC title games. Joe, I do want to get your thoughts on this to start here. A lot of people hammering you for your love for Hendon Hooker. Who would you rather have as quarterback next year of the Tennessee Titans, Sam Darnold or Hendon Hooker?
Yes, Jared has sent me a personal text. Who else? Anybody else? No. But I've seen the text line hit me too. Yes, I would definitely pick Sam Darnold. Okay. Again, Hendon Hooker. I have to go with college performance, which obviously is not 100% reliable. It's not close to that. I am, though, going with ACL, and the rookie year's washed away. So this was really his rookie year. People seem to forget that. And I understand they brought in Bridgewater, so some people, Karski immediately texts me, "Oh, your boy Hendon Hooker. Wow, what's going on with that guy?" And so now I got still like, yeah, and that's fine. But Bridgewater coming in this year as insurance, as a veteran who, played quarterback pretty well in the NFL for a lot of years, does not mean the future of Hendon Hooker is washed away. So I'm sticking with my belief that he's going to get his opportunity and do well. But no, right now, based on the information we have, of course I would take Sam Darnold over Hendon Hooker. Let's not get goofy.
Well, I was told to ask you the question, so that's what I did.
Who, Stilly told you?
Stilly told me to ask you the question.
Or Paulie? Which one of Stilly and Paulie?
It was Stilly. Stilly told me to ask you the question, so I figured I would oblige. I didn't want to bring his name up because I didn't know if you'd get violently angry like you did earlier in the show.
Well, he texted me too, but he didn't have the guts to ask the question. So,
are we crazy for picking Josh Allen and the Bills to go into Arrowhead and take down Kansas City this weekend?
No, we're not. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but no, this is a toss-up game. And Vegas is telling you it's a toss-up game. Vegas is telling you that on a neutral field, the Bills are favored by 1.5, aren't they?
They are, but Kansas City doesn't lose.
Yeah, I get that. I do. But they will. They will. That's my analysis.
I understand, lose. But they will.
I mean, at some point, everything comes to an end. My beloved Golden State Warriors, as I watch them flail and flounder at 500, it's like, hey, man, it was a dynasty. It was a great run. And, still enjoy watching some of those guys, but they come to an end. The Chiefs are not there yet, of course. And there's a big difference when you have a quarterback like Mahomes. But I just think that it's the Bills' time. It is. I think it's the Bills' time. And they had them, a couple years ago, and they let them out. But I think this time they're going to get it done. I really do. It's not just like that I'm sick of the Chiefs and I want them to lose. I actually think the Bills are going to get this done this time.
How awesome would a Bills Commanders Super Bowl be? I mean, I'm rooting for it. I don't think it's very likely, but I'm rooting for it. I think it'd be great.
That would be fun. I mean, look, Bills Eagles would also be
great.
I mean, in a way, Bills Eagles sounds more attractive just because the Eagles are a more complete team than the Commanders. But
yeah, but they've been there too much lately.
Yeah, I hear you.
I need some new blood.
Bills Commanders, though, would bring back the 91, the second of 4 straight Bills Super Bowl losses in a row.
Yeah.
And of course, the last 3 being blowouts. So a chance to get a little bit of revenge there. But let me tell you something. Jaden Daniels is not Mark Rippon. He's better than Mark Rippon.
I'd say that is a fair assessment that you've made there. Look, I'm interested to see how it goes down this weekend. Philadelphia, I mean, you're at home. The way the playoffs have broken in the NFC with Detroit going out have worked really well for you here. So, like, I think it's a big opportunity for Philadelphia. Like, how healthy is Jalen Hurts? He screwed up his knee at the end of last game. Obviously him being able to run and take off with the ball is a big part of this. Like, if he is limited in a significant way in this game, how much of an impact does that have on the game?
Yeah, a big one for sure. And the Commanders did a good job against Barkley last time. Especially the second half, they sold out. They stopped the run. They came back. They won the game. But Barkley is it's just so hard to not let him sneak out of there once or twice a game, right?
Yeah.
Like, they find a way to get him free. But
AJ will have his book on the sideline. He'll be ready to go just in case.
He has like 30 yards receiving, by the way, in 2 games. So
yeah,
there's a guy who I don't think that they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna be in the Super Bowl if they don't get more production out of AJ.
Well, just got to get more books out there. Whatever passages he's reading right now, we need new ones.
By the way, I think the sales on that book, have they gone like 1,000% immediately?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I should get that book. Some kind of self-improvement.
Joe, the Preds have won 5 games in a row. They get the 6-5 win last night against San Jose. So back-to-back wins against the Sharks this week. They'll go for 6 in a row tomorrow against Anaheim. We talked about it to begin the week. Could you take advantage of this week and win all of these games and get this winning streak to 6? If you could do that, then I'd start to look ahead and say, all right, well, what does this path look like here for you? They won last night. They kept pace. They're still 10 points out of a playoff spot, but Vancouver lost in regulation. St. Louis lost in regulation. Seattle lost in regulation. Like, some teams in front of you lost last night. So, obviously they're playing really, really well right now. The offense is coming. Forsberg's got goals in 7 straight. He scored twice last night. Stamkos is playing great. Marchessault's playing great. So there's a lot to feel good about with the Predators right now. To me, if you can win this game against Anaheim and get this thing to 6, that idea that we talked about on Monday, when you look ahead to the break, like, can you get yourself in a position by the break coming up on February the 8th where you're like 7 or 8 points out of a playoff spot? Could it be lower than that? Like, if it's lower than that, then I think you have a realistic shot heading into the final stretch of the season here. But Predators doing a lot of winning right now.
They are. I still don't have a huge amount of trust when you gave up 10 goals in 2 games to the Sharks.
There's that.
And, you had an incredible comeback, the biggest comeback ever to win one of them, and you blew a 5-2 lead in one period in the other one. You won them. And again, the offense clicking the way it is exciting. I mean, it's just like with the Titans this year, at least like score points and lose. So you're fun to watch.
Yeah.
So if they win, if they finish this out, it's like, well, you did what you're supposed to do. That is still, though, that's a hurdle, right? I mean, I didn't think that they would. I figured they'd screw it up somewhere. They have won these games. You start getting on a roll. You keep building on 5 straight, and you get it down into single digits. And I don't think there's any question that it would have a big impact on the room, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't think, like, they would have a level of, I guess, I don't know about belief, but a level of just, possibility that they haven't had in a long time. I mean, I know I've buried them long ago. They would had no chance of making the playoffs. So they can do it. It makes for an interesting February, at least.
Well, UC Saros is going to have to be a big part of that. He did not start last night. His 8-year contract kicks in next year, so he's not going anywhere. He's going to be around. He's going to have to be a part of this, but like, his numbers are not good. Like, he's got career, other than like when he started, I think, 1 game his first year, he's got career low numbers right now. 901 save percentage. His goal saved above expected is not good. Like, he's, by the numbers, the last 2 years, he's trending in the wrong way. Now, there's still some time to pull himself out of it this year, but something to keep an eye on if you're the Predators moving forward here is, like, how concerning is that when you're paying him to be one of the elite goalies in the league? And right now, quite frankly, he's just not. He has not played like one of the elite goalies in the league for really the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's a big picture concern for sure. I mean, well beyond even the the short term of like these guys in their prime and what can you do and can you really make a run? I mean, that's a huge concern beyond that. But I mean, just a year ago, he played really good hockey in this stage of the season.
Yep.
And that's all. That's what you just have to hope that he finds that. And if not, man, a lot of things look different long term for this franchise.
That's going to do it for us today here on the program. Back to be glad to be back on the right side of things today. Back on the program.
Woo!
Not half dead. All those things are good. Hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll be back at 6 a.m. on Monday morning to break it all down this weekend. Jason Big Joe is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.